The day I caught my fiancé searching through my financial documents while our son slept in the next room was the day I realized I'd been living a lie. My name is Daniel Mercer, and what I'm about to share with you changed everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and what it means to be a father. If my story resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps others find these real stories that might just save them from the heartbreak I endured. I never thought I'd be telling this story to strangers on the internet. But here I am, 3 years later, finally ready to share how the woman I planned to marry chose my wealth over my heart, and how that betrayal led me to discover what truly matters in life. Before I met Vanessa, I was just another tech entrepreneur who'd gotten lucky. My app development company had taken off unexpectedly when our productivity software caught the attention of several Fortune 500 companies. By 32, I had more money than I knew what to do with, but something was missing. I wanted a family, someone to share my success with. I wanted what my parents had, a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine love. I met Vanessa at a charity gala in San Francisco. She was working as an event coordinator, and I was immediately struck by her efficiency and the way she handled the chaos with grace. She had this infectious laugh that would bubble up unexpectedly, and when she smiled, her eyes crinkled at the corners in a way that made my heart skip. We started dating, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I'd found someone who saw me, not my bank account. At least, that's what I thought. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 8 months, Vanessa had moved into my house in Marin County. By our 1-year anniversary, she was pregnant with our son, Ethan. I proposed the night we found out about the baby, under a canopy of stars on the deck overlooking the bay. She cried when I got down on one knee, and I thought they were tears of joy. Now I wonder if they were tears of triumph. The first year with Ethan was a blur of sleepless nights and indescribable joy. Vanessa was a devoted mother, and I fell more in love with her watching her with our son. I worked from home as much as possible to be present for those early moments, his first smile, the first time he rolled over, his first steps. We were building the family I'd always dreamed of. Or so I believed. Looking back, there were signs I chose to ignore. The way Vanessa's spending increased dramatically after Ethan was born. The designer clothes she insisted were necessary for charity events where we'd be representing the family. The subtle digs about my colleagues' wives and their lavish lifestyles. The growing pressure to upgrade our already substantial home to something more suitable for entertaining. I chalked it up to new motherhood and the stress of planning our wedding. I wanted to make her happy, so I rarely questioned the expenses. When I did suggest we might be overspending, she'd become defensive, accusing me of not trusting her or valuing her contributions to our family. I'd back down, not wanting to fight in front of Ethan. The night everything changed started like any other. I'd put Ethan to bed after his bath, reading him "Goodnight Moon" until his eyelids grew heavy. Vanessa had excused herself earlier, claiming a headache. I decided to check on her before heading to my home office to finish some work. She wasn't in our bedroom. I found her in my study, hunched over my desk with my laptop open and a folder of financial documents spread out before her. She was so absorbed in what she was doing that she didn't hear me enter. I stood in the doorway, watching as she photographed statements from my offshore accounts I'd mentioned to her only in passing. "What are you doing?" My voice was barely above a whisper, but she jumped as if I'd shouted. The look on her face, not guilt, but annoyance at being caught, told me everything I needed to know. "I'm just trying to understand our finances better," she said, quickly closing the laptop. "For wedding planning purposes." At midnight? By taking photos of private documents? What followed was the most painful conversation of my life. Under pressure, Vanessa's carefully constructed facade crumbled. She admitted she'd been documenting my assets for months, consulting with a lawyer about how to maximize what she could claim in the event of a divorce. She'd been building a case, gathering evidence, preparing for a future without me while smiling to my face and wearing my ring. "You have to understand," she said, her voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "I need security. I need to know Ethan and I will be taken care of." "I've never given you any reason to doubt that," I said, my voice breaking. "I've given you everything." Her response chilled me to the bone. "I need to make sure it stays that way." That night, as Ethan slept peacefully unaware that his world was about to change, I realized the woman I loved had never existed. The real Vanessa had been playing a long game, and I was just a means to an end: financial security, social status, the lifestyle she felt entitled to. I asked her to leave the next day. She went to stay with her sister, taking Ethan with her. Those first few weeks without my son were the darkest of my life. The house echoed with his absence: no babbling over the baby monitor, no tiny shoes by the door, no reason to rush home from work. I moved through my days like a ghost, wondering how I could have been so blind. The legal battle that followed was ugly. Vanessa's lawyer painted me as a workaholic who was rarely present, despite my efforts to be an involved father. They demanded exorbitant child support and alimony, claiming Ethan was accustomed to a certain lifestyle that needed to be maintained. They wanted the house, half my company shares, access to those offshore accounts she'd been photographing. I fought back with everything I had, not for the money, but for my son. I hired a private investigator who uncovered evidence that Vanessa had been planning this for longer than I'd suspected. There were text messages to friends about securing the bag before Ethan was even born. There was a secret bank account where she'd been transferring funds I gave her for household expenses. There was even a dating profile she'd created 3 months after our engagement. The judge saw through her claims. While she was awarded child support appropriate for Ethan's needs, her attempts to claim half my business assets failed. We were granted joint custody, with Ethan spending equal time in both homes. The day the divorce was finalized should have felt like a victory, but all I felt was hollow. I'd lost the future I thought I was building. My son would grow up shuttling between 2 homes. The woman I'd loved had never really existed. That night, sitting alone in Ethan's room, surrounded by the stuffed animals and books he loved, I made a promise to myself and to him. This experience wouldn't harden my heart. It wouldn't make me bitter. Instead, it would teach me to be more discerning, more present, more grateful for what truly mattered: my relationship with my son. The next 2 years were a journey of rebuilding. I scaled back my work hours to be more available during my time with Ethan. I started a tradition of Adventure Saturdays, where we'd explore somewhere new together: tide pools along the coast, hidden city parks, children's museums. I learned to cook his favorite meals, to braid his hair when it got long, to distinguish between a tired cry and a hurt one. Slowly, I began to heal. I found joy again in the simple moments: teaching Ethan to ride a bike, watching his face light up when he mastered a new skill, holding his hand as we crossed the street. I realized that while Vanessa had seen me as a wallet, Ethan saw me as his world. And that was worth more than all the money I'd ever earned. Co-parenting with Vanessa wasn't easy. There were tense exchanges at drop-offs, disagreements about schools and activities, the constant awareness that she was still monitoring my finances for any change that might affect her support payments. But for Ethan's sake, I remained civil. I never spoke ill of her in front of him. I wanted him to form his own opinions, untainted by adult conflicts he couldn't understand. About a year after the divorce, something unexpected happened. I met someone new, not at a glamorous event or through a dating app, but at one of Ethan's playgroups. Her name was Maya, a pediatric nurse and single mother to a daughter Ethan's age. We bonded over the challenges of single parenthood, sharing stories and advice while our kids built sandcastles together. Unlike my relationship with Vanessa, things with Maya progressed slowly. We were both cautious, both carrying scars from past relationships. Our first dates were family outings, trips to the zoo, picnics in the park, movie nights with the kids falling asleep between us on the couch. We talked openly about our fears and expectations. I was transparent about my financial situation from the beginning, and she was clear that her priority was finding a partner who would love her daughter as his own. 6 months into dating, Maya lost her apartment when her landlord decided to sell the building. Without thinking twice, I offered her and her daughter the guest house on my property, not as a step toward moving in together, but as a practical solution while she looked for a new place. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary, but watching our children become inseparable, seeing how naturally we fell into a rhythm as a blended family, we realized we'd found something special. The day Maya and her daughter officially moved into the main house with Ethan and me was nothing like when Vanessa had moved in. There was no extravagant celebration, no expensive gifts, just a simple dinner we cooked together, the children helping in their own chaotic way, laughter filling every corner of the home. That night, after the kids were asleep, Maya and I sat on the deck where I'd once proposed to Vanessa. The same stars shone overhead, but everything else had changed. "I need you to know something," Maya said, her hand warm in mine. "I'm here because of this." She placed her hand over my heart, "not because of anything else you can provide. If it all disappeared tomorrow, if we had to start over in a tiny apartment somewhere, I'd still choose you. I'd still choose us." I believed her. Not because I was naive or desperate to be loved, but because she'd proven it in 1,000 small ways. She insisted on contributing to household expenses despite my objections. She drove her 10-year-old car despite my offers to upgrade it. When I surprised her with an expensive necklace for her birthday, she gently asked me to return it and instead help fund a playground at the children's hospital where she worked. Vanessa still makes occasional comments about Maya hitting the jackpot or playing the long game. She still scrutinizes changes in my lifestyle for evidence to take back to her lawyer. But her words have lost their power to hurt me. I know the difference now between someone who values what I can provide and someone who values who I am. 3 years after that devastating night in my study, I'm sharing this story not to vilify Vanessa or to portray myself as a victim, but because I've learned something valuable that might help others. True wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or property portfolios. It's measured in moments of genuine connection, in relationships built on mutual respect, in the knowledge that you are loved for yourself, not for what you can provide. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, whether you've been betrayed by someone you trusted or you're questioning the foundations of your own relationship, know that there is life after heartbreak. There is healing. There is hope for something more authentic on the other side of pain. Today, Ethan is 5 years old. He's starting kindergarten, obsessed with dinosaurs, and learning to play soccer. He splits his time between 2 homes where he is deeply loved. Maya's daughter calls me bonus dad, and has me wrapped around her little finger. Maya and I are engaged, but we're in no rush to marry. We're building something strong and real, day by day, moment by moment. As for Vanessa, I've made peace with our past. I recognize now that her actions came from her own insecurities and fears, not from a place of malice. I hope one day she finds what she's looking for, though I suspect it won't be found in a bank account or a designer wardrobe. The most valuable lesson I've learned through all of this is about the example I'm setting for my son. I want Ethan to grow up understanding that his worth isn't tied to his achievements or possessions. I want him to know how to love and be loved authentically. I want him to recognize the difference between someone who values what he can provide and someone who values who he is. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you for listening. If something in my experience helps you navigate your own relationships with more wisdom and discernment, then sharing this painful chapter of my life will have been worth it. Please consider subscribing to this channel for more real stories that might just change how you see the world, or at least remind you that you're not alone in your struggles. Remember, true wealth isn't what's in your wallet. It's what's in your heart, and who you choose to share it with.